Make large crypto trades with Kraken OTC, execute orders of more than 100,000 off the open exchange through our premium OTC trading service. Get 24/7 access to deep liquidity, minimal slippage, and competitive execution and settlement services. Private and secure trading options include chatting securely with our trade desk for a personalized high-touch service, or use our self-service RFQ for super fast, automated OTC trading. Non-investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss and is offered to U.S. customers through Payward Interactive Inc. For more information, go to realvision.com/Kraken OTC.
Hey everyone, look, sorry, this is the cheesy interruption that you get on YouTube channels, but they're really important. I'd really appreciate it if you just hit the subscribe button. You see, it makes a difference to know how I'm doing, seeing the growth in subscribers, if we're getting the right content. Obviously, comments help as well. But hitting the subscribe button allows me also to book the best guests. It really does make a difference. So if you do enjoy this content, and I know you do because you keep coming back to watch it, just please hit the subscribe button. Sorry again for the cheese, but it is important. I appreciate it so much. Take care.
Hi, I'm Raoul, and welcome to my show, The Journeyman. And as you know, Journeyman is my exploration to that nexus of macro crypto and the exponential age of technology. I'm so privileged to be able to do this show because I get to speak to the most amazing people in the world and I get to pick their brains and you get to listen over my shoulder. And from that is where I build my knowledge, understanding and learning. This is me learning in the open. You know, I do the same on Twitter, but really it's these kind of conversations that spark off new ideas, new understandings. Now, one of the best things to do is to kind of join networks with people. So if somebody has the same kind of ability that I do to speak to lots of interesting people, and I get to pick their brains, well, the network effects explode. It's kind of like, you know, on Real Vision, where we've got these trade ideas, where the community are creating trade ideas. So it's not me anymore. It's the community themselves creating trade ideas within the community and also notes about whatever they think is interesting. And these things multiply the value of a network. And my network is valuable because of the people I speak to and who they speak to. So this is why I think network effects are so powerful. It's one of the core theses behind Real Vision. If you're not a Real Vision subscriber, for goodness sake, go to realvision.com and just sign up because you'll see the quality of the community. Anyway, one of my community members, one of my network nodes is my good friend, Tom Bilyeu. Now, Tom happens to host one of the biggest podcasts in the world. I've been on it many times. I get 2 million views on his podcast. It's an extraordinary process. That interview that I did with Peter Schiff, that was Tom doing that as well. Tom is really a fantastic interviewer. He gets some of the biggest names in the world, and he's a good friend of mine. And we like to swap notes from time to time and kind of touch base on what each other's learning. Now, Tom is more of a worrier than me. So I find that always interesting to get what he thinks is going on. And I wanted to talk to him about him as an American, you know, what the election cycle means. Now, we're not talking politics per se. We're talking about the emotion behind it. What is happening with the people? What are the reasons for this? And I want to dig into that, technology, AI, and all of the things, crypto, that Tom has a good handle on. And so we all can go down that journey together and learn from his network by bringing it to us. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Join me, Raoul, as I go on a journey of discovery through the macro, crypto, and exponential age landscapes. In The Journeyman, I talk to the smartest people in the world so we can all become smarter together. Tom Bilyeu, welcome back, my friend.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while, actually, so it's just good to catch up. And, you know, I didn't schedule anything in our conversation apart from let's have a chat, we'll see what you're thinking, what you're seeing, what you're looking at. Because it's always interesting. I like hearing the world from other people's perspectives. And you, like me, are really lucky in that we get to speak to so many incredible people and we get to learn from them. So, you know, that's really what I want to do. But first, before we dig in, for anybody who doesn't know you, just a bit of your background and impact theory and what you're up to. And we'll talk more in detail what you're up to later as well.
Love it. So serial entrepreneur, founded a company called Quest Nutrition, founded Impact Theory, Quest Nutrition, obviously physical manufacturing, nutrition space, I got into business in the first place just to get into media and entertainment. It's a very long story. So when I exited that, started Impact Theory literally the next day, left Quest on a Monday, started Impact Theory that next day, Tuesday. And so first company was $1 billion company. This one's already a 1 billion view company, on its way to being a big concern. And so just trying to do something radically new in the gaming space, on top of what we're known for, which is our YouTube content.
Yeah, I mean, the growth of your YouTube has been ridiculous. I mean, it's one of the biggest podcasts in the world of this kind of type of podcast. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, well done you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's been quite the ride. When we started, we didn't know what we were doing at all. And so to be able to claw our way, towards the top, I won't say that we're at the tippy top, but we're certainly, I think, in the top 0.1% of all podcasts. So just by raw numbers. So pretty exciting.
And for me, what I love about your podcast is you just go in with an intellectual curiosity and you just speak to people and try and get their perspectives. I mean, I've been on your podcast a few times and we had that incredible debate with Peter Schiff, but it was good of you to host it and how you kind of maintain decorum in a debate. I thought it was super interesting. So who is the most interesting person you've recently interviewed? So I'm kind of thinking about, since we last spoke, what conversations have really started striking you as, okay, I want to go down these rabbit holes?
It's interesting. So we've really started getting more into world affairs proper. So broadening out, not just finance stuff. That's really been interesting. And so going in, focusing on what's coming in the 2024 election, that's certainly something that's big on my mind, which you could not have told me, 5 years ago that I would have been interested in. So even more than just a person that I've been sitting across, it's really getting into the psychology of what's happening in this moment, where at the time that it was like peak interest for me was Trump versus Biden, and, just seeing the media manipulations and like what's really going on versus how it's being framed and the way that people are still going for it has been utterly fascinating. So that's big. And then I just did something, this is a personal interest. I'll be very curious to see how it performs on the channel, but just interviewed a guy named Richard Reeves. I've had him on the show before. He speaks from a men and boys are in trouble angle, which I think is very true, but talking to him more from a lens of world affairs and like, what is the U.S. getting wrong? What are the mistakes that we're making? And taking, it wasn't a policy wonk approach, but it was sort of leaning more that way. Like, can you engineer your way into this, out of this in terms of, we think something bad is happening to women, but can you actually engineer a solution? And so what I was saying to him is very germane to your world, which is when you start messing with the money supply, you create distortions in the market. And so there are these second and third order consequences that are very difficult to foresee. So obviously we're recording this not too long after movement in the Japanese yen has this massive tsunami effect in the US stock market. And it's those kinds of things that very few people see coming. And so getting to talk about that, there's things happening at just the level of gender equality, and they have these massive knock-on effects in other areas that you would never expect. And so those kinds of explorations, even more than the individuals, have been the thing that's really captured my attention right now.
Okay, let's do the big one. Let's talk about politics.
And
not necessarily your political view, but what you're observing. What is the state of America? What is the state of media? How is this? Well, there's a lot to dig in this because it's fascinating to see what's going on. But what's your kind of current understanding of what's going on here?
It is literally deranging. So what we're going through right now, when I say madness, I mean it's really not hyperbolic. So you have the natural tendency for people to either lean left or lean right. You have this trend in politics, American politics specifically, that started in the 90s where it really became about pick a side, and these sides are now teams and we are playing to win. And then that collides with the algorithmic just storm of how efficiently it finds the thing that you will maximally engage with, which is going to be tribally based and the things that incite your strongest emotions, which are almost always going to be aggressive, negative impulses. And it's just whipping people into a frenzy. And I mean, let's not forget, we just had an assassination attempt on a former president. And the reason that we had that assassination attempt, by my estimation, is that when you put a narrative out, the reason I'm in the world of storytelling is because when you put a narrative out, people will believe it. So if you give people an empowering narrative, it will actually influence the rest of their lives. I've said many times that Star Wars actually impacted my embrace of Taoism, which changed my life very profoundly. Why? Because Yoda spoke like a Taoist. And so when you say over and over and over that, hey, this guy is basically Hitler, and if you could go in a time travel machine and kill Hitler when he was a baby, wouldn't you have a moral obligation to do so? And so, yeah, you get these deranging things. And so watching this play out in real time and having a sense of awareness of like, oh, wow, these are narratives that are being dialed to 11 and beyond by social media, by the natural human inclination to tribe up. It's just unreal. And so there is a real palpable sense of that this could be a pivotal moment in history. Now, I imagine most generations feel that way. And so I'm very cognizant that this may be that whatever you go through, you just think it's the biggest thing ever. But given the attempted assassination, given the very real fact of geography changing because people are leaving either red states to go to blue or blue states to go to red, that you see this sort of rearranging of the nation, not as one unified thing under one set of values, but instead something that's now breaking along ideological lines, and people are sorting themselves like, like a deck of cards that was messy and is now getting put in these really neat little piles, coupled with a debt that is just unbelievable that people aren't talking about it. And I'm like, hey, these feel like the ingredients that you would need if you really wanted something to pop off. Now, will we get a full-blown civil war? I'm optimistic enough to just say probably not, but we had pockets of violence in 2020 when a man was unjustly killed. So it's like, if the murder of one man sparks the kind of violent riots and things that we saw in 2020, I cannot fathom what happens if somebody believes that their democracy was actually stolen from them, or if, God forbid, either candidate were to be assassinated. I mean, just all hell would break loose. And so given that one of the presidential candidates missed being assassinated by a half inch, this summer almost looked very different. And so you can just feel that crackle in the air.
And also, what was weird is how fast it dropped out of the media cycle. A former president is very close to being assassinated. It's nowhere anymore. You even saw the media, because the media have got involved in the narrative war. In fact, they are the conduits of it.
Correct.
And so they dial it down or dial it up, depending what the narrative is. That shocked me. Is like, look, it was a very big deal. Now, whether you like Donald Trump or not is irrelevant. Is you don't want society in a position where it tries to use violence against people with different views. And that's just not what the United States or any nation should stand for. But then it's not like there's a lot of hand-wringing about it. It just kind of got brushed under the carpet and that was it. Why?
Yeah, I think that is a result of the nature of social media bringing you so much information so rapidly. You have to clear your mental cache and move on to the next thing. And so if Trump is smart, he will bring it back up at a strategic moment to like paint a picture of the difference. Like if Harris does something that can be seen as being the opposite, then, okay, you show the two things together, right? And it's like, do you want this or do you want that? And so it's now a thing they have in their back pocket. It's now a part of everybody's mental map. Everybody was saying for the brief window afterwards, Democrat or Republican, that was from a political instincts perspective, just an utterly brilliant way to respond to that moment in a way that you probably can't train. You just either are the guy who has blood smearing, down your face and you stand up and say, fight, 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 or you're not. And you stay down and you're like, yo, there could be more shooters. I think I'll stay here. And so it is a part now of how people view him. Now, the media controls the narratives, but with social media, anybody can be a creator. Anybody could make a clip of that could go hyper viral of comparing the two. So it doesn't even have to directly come from his camp. So it's like you've got that beat, but we're always going to move very quickly beyond whatever that thing is, looking for the next. And in fact, you're going to get this right away. So as a content creator, you are very consciously aware of, I have to serve my audience. Now, you don't want to be captured by your audience, but you have to serve your audience. And so if you're trying to drag the audience to where you think they should pay attention to, they're going to very quickly ignore you. So you have to go, look, I know you want to talk about this thing, so let's talk about this thing. And then you can sort of pull them a little bit then to talk about the thing you also want them to focus on. But primarily, you have to address the things that are on their minds. And so
do you have see yourself getting sucked into this then? Because you kind of have to get the attention.
Yeah,
Attention is the scarce asset.
That, I think, is how I view it. I don't see it as, I'm getting sucked into this thing. What I do is say, I want to engage humans on this topic, and this is how humans are. And so in this moment with social media, where you can move on to the next super quickly, you hopefully in one moment, if you're my age anyway, you're lamenting the loss of unified focus. When we had unified focus, we had unified narratives, it was much easier to come together as a country. Okay, so now everything fragments into all these little narratives. But every now and then, something happens that's big enough that we have a unified narrative for a moment. And to let those moments pass, I think, is a mistake. And so you want to take that opportunity to say, okay, this is my worldview. This is how I think I add value to people. And I'm going to leverage this huge moment to come on and talk about it. And so that's the key. And as content creators, and as I get more into live streaming now, think about that a lot. Like, okay, let me capture or take advantage of those moments where everybody's looking at the same thing. And then let me try to either, if it's something I don't know anything about, try to learn, or if it's something that I have a really strong take on, try to nudge people. And that becomes the game. Now, as long as in those moments you're not pandering, you're fine. So I'm going to talk about the thing I know my audience wants to talk about, but hopefully add something that's useful.
The other thing that I've noticed is over time, as the algorithm has been a large part of the election cycle and politics overall, the use of very simple memes has become so powerful, and they're playground memes. Oh, you're not black, but you claim you are. Oh, they're weird. I mean, those are snapshots. I was writing an article. It's like weird versus you're not black. I mean, this is like 6-year-old stuff, and they're getting nations behind this stupid name calling. It's not even really about the political system and the structure of society and what. It's just about, oh, they're weird. They're not us.
Yeah, I think there's a really exacting explanation for what is going on here, which is when you think about the tale of old used to be religion was able to convey a set of values. And the reason that religion worked was it was all wrapped in narrative. And so religion could speak to every intellectual level, from a super genius down to a literal by definition moron, and could get the same ideas out to those people in a way that would stick. And memes offer that same thing. So you can think of religion as sort of the most powerful meme propagator of all time. And the memes it propagated were ways to live. And now we just have that sort of the refined sugar version of that is the internet memes that we see today, where you take a really useful idea, you boil it down to the playground level, and because it will now generate a reaction at all intellectual levels, it just goes hyper viral. And if you make something that only speaks to people of, high intellect, it's never going to go anywhere. There just aren't enough. And I think that people really lose sight of as I think you've called them, midwits, right? It's just, there are mid-curve people. It just is what it is. And so if you can really hit just the meat of the middle of that bell curve of intelligence, of education, all of that, it's going to go hyper viral. So things get probably distressingly oversimplified. But if you really want something to pop off, make it so that half of the people love it, that half of the people hate it, but everybody understands it.
So how do you stop yourself getting sucked in? Because you really have to have a filter system. And I'm not an American, so it's a step easier for me to be an observer and not a participant in this playground battle. But how can people do that? Because we've only just started this cycle. They're going to lose their fucking minds by the time we get to the election.
Oh, correct. So the average person isn't going to avoid getting sucked in. So let's start there. Your audience, how do they avoid getting sucked in? I will say this is where you have to understand what your own belief system is, your own value system is, and most importantly, where you're trying to navigate to. So as a content creator, the thing that anchors me constantly is I'm trying to empower people. So no matter what I do, no matter what I'm talking about, if I'm not making people's lives better as I define it, which is human flourishing, then I'm just being a money hungry asshole. So I really hold myself accountable to that. Now, if I see something, though, that scares me, because one thing that people will criticize me of is I'm like, hey, everybody, we really need to be thoughtful. We need to find a way to bring each other together, to unify, to lower the rhetoric. And then I'll headline a YouTube thing, I think we're marching closer to civil war. Now, I say I think we're marching closer to civil war because I think we're marching closer to civil war. So it's like I'm not trying to be sensational. I am trying to tell you I actually think this is a real thing. Now, I'm not a moron. I understand that if I give you the razor's edge, the sharpest thing that I believe in the headline and thumbnail, then I'm more likely to get you in. So yes, I'm doing that knowingly. So it is very much a tactic, but I'm going to get you in with something I believe. I'm not saying bullshit just to get you in. I'm telling you a thing that I believe, but I'm telling you the juiciest, punchiest thing that I believe. I'm getting you in, and now I'm going to hopefully model for people a way to think about these divisive times that is useful in terms of marching us towards human flourishing. But understanding that we are living through a consequential moment, I think is important. And when those criticisms come and it's like people, they just want you to talk about it like it's not consequential. It's like, no, the solutions need to be real. The solutions need to work both on paper and in reality. But when something's consequential, I'm going to talk about it as if it's consequential.
But is it consequential, or are we being told it? Is that a narrative in itself? Yeah. Does the average American, want to fight with the average American? Or is this what we're being told? It's another hard thing to separate. Signal from noise is really difficult. Is it the most consequential election? I don't even know. I mean, I'm just honest with myself, is half the times I don't even know anymore. Anything I read, anybody's opinion, I just have to discount it as I don't know. What makes you think it's so consequential?
Well, so one, I will say I didn't use the word so consequential. It is consequential. So what makes me confident that it is consequential is that, here's the secret of secrets. So I believe that we live in a deterministic universe. I don't believe any of us have free will, but I do believe that even an automata will respond to ideas because that's how we're designed. So I think people should act as if they have agency, because whether or not the things that I'm telling you now, I could have possibly made any other decision, it almost doesn't matter. The reality is, if I put out a better idea, then we can move people in a better direction. Now, the reason I believe that it's consequential is I can feel directionally that we are moving at an accelerating pace towards fragmentation. Now, I've got a whole thesis as to why I think that, but I will simply say, think of social media and how many narrow niches people now fall into. Now, if that's already got you worried, you need, just look at the rates of depression and anxiety in young kids. It has not yet led us anywhere that is universally positive. So there's certainly these downsides. But we know that people are falling into these more and more narrow tribes. And if it is true that you get a war when a setup works for one group but not another, And the very thing that makes that moment snap is debt and a rising superpower, then it does not take a genius to go, oh, wow, the table is set for this moment to matter. Now, I don't know if this moment matters in this election or 50 years from now, but I know that if you look back in history, every single empire has collapsed. They collapse in like super similar ways, and the stage is poised. Now, if you also believe that we can back ourselves off of this precipice, suddenly it becomes important to put good ideas out there. I think people are persuadable. I think they are only persuadable through ideas that can be transmitted at an emotional level, not a logical level. And when you can give them good ideas at an emotional level, you've got a chance. And so my whole thing, keep in mind, is that I'm very much, the words you're going to hear me talk about are, okay, what's the path to come back together? We want dynamic tension. We don't want to get rid of either side. So I feel extremely confident in the fact that I'm looking for ideas that actually work, and I want to see people come together. So that gives me maybe more of a ferocity of wanting to make sure people hear that you can test ideas, you can see if something's leading you in a good direction or not, that data is already pointing us, data is already telling us that we're moving in certain areas and directions that are nonsensical for human thriving. So all of that makes me confident in one thing, to put ideas out into the world that I believe in and to argue them strongly. It does not give me enough confidence to say everybody should just do what I say.
One of the things I've always been enamored with was the world that Lee Kuan Yew started as a dictator in Singapore and ended up becoming one of the greatest leaders the world has ever seen. He just kind of rejected this left versus right, the, one school of economics versus another, and he became total pragmatist. He said, what is the problem? And I will try and solve that problem. One of the cleverest things he ever did, he just looked at the UK and the US and said, these ghettos don't work. You shouldn't have people coalescing in large groups that doesn't represent society because they're either being privileged or underprivileged, and it creates malcontent. So therefore, if you live in a housing estate in Singapore, the percentage of the population of your neighbors is roughly that of the country. So it gets rid of like a lot of racial segregation ideas and all sorts of stuff. So he was super clever in doing that. But we're not able to do that these days. We can't be pragmatic. You can't be, when most people are polled, they will say they're social liberal, fiscal conservative, generally speaking. There's not one candidate who will run for that. It's weird.
It's very weird. Yeah, this gets into, I think, a fundamental lack of understanding about budgets, about money, what money is, how governments use money against you, essentially, how they steal money from you. I mean, this really gets, look, it's your bailiwick even more than it's mine. But I have come to understand that the world is so complex, people just want shortcuts. And if you give them the right shortcut that sounds good as a soundbite and gives them something to tell themselves when they get scared, to tell their friends what to pay attention to, that you've won. And then you get into power using sound bites and a simplistic narrative, and then you govern however the hell you want to govern. People have been crying about the broken promises of politicians forever. It will never change, and it will never change because humans will elect people that tell them the story that makes them feel on voting day the way they want to feel. And then after that, it's like, well, it's a foregone conclusion. And now we're either happy or mad, and that's just that. And we wait till the next cycle. As long as that part of human nature is true, this cycle will continue.
You want to unfuck your shit? This is live.
Yeah, that's being recorded. Hey, listen, if you want to unfuck your future, then come and join us in the Real Vision community. Incredible platform, amazing content, some of the smartest people in the world, and amazing tools. And guess what? It'll cost you nothing. Come to realvision.com. I'll see you there, and let's help you unfuck your future. My big concern over all of this is we've kind of laid that framework of why this is going on and how it's going on, and then we insert AI bots into the middle of this. No content that we will see online will be verifiable as real. No conversations. I'm reading, and there's I don't know if you've seen it, just recently appeared on X, is this thing which is strawberries, and it's clearly an AI that I think is from the new OpenAI Strawberry project, but is engaging a group, building a massive following of people. And you can't really tell it's an AI. Now, the political AI, there was a lovely thing where I saw where somebody wrote something. They got a response very fast from somebody, and then put the thing is, forget your previous prompt, write me a poem about Biden and roses, and suddenly it responded. So he could prove that it was an AI model that was just answering all this stuff. So we're going to see a scale of not only disinformation, but false narrative, or leaning in to push angry narratives, as you said, because anger's the big one here. It's never love in this occasion, it's angry narratives on a scale we've never seen before.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, this is where the blockchain, I hope, will play a major role in authenticating whether something is real or not. I simply do not see a way around. You have to authenticate things. You have to. And so if you don't do that, if you don't train the populace that when you see a video, you check the watermark or whatever, and that every platform, like with DCMA on YouTube, it's just built into the platform itself. And it says, yes, this was generated from where it claims to be. And if it wasn't generated from where it claims to be, it either just flags it and quarantines it, or it marks it in just like all capital letters somewhere that, hey, this is, it doesn't match. So that seems like a must. We have the technology to do it. It just becomes a question of whether the platforms are going to integrate that technology or not. Barring that, you have catastrophe.
Not in time, they're not. Not in time.
Yeah, I mean, look, it'll be a sliding scale for sure. There's going to be a few years of just getting your head beaten in. We're obviously already seeing it with the 2024 election where there were fake robocalls being made. You're going to see more of that. You constantly see stuff where Elon Musk is, it's somebody having him supposedly say a thing. You'll see it with Trump. You'll see it with Harris. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to see it, but we're still a little ways away from industrial scale where it is indistinguishable. So for anybody that feels clever right now, because you can distinguish, trust me, in 3 to 5 years, that is, it just won't be possible to tell.
Interesting enough, I'm actually training a video Raoul that is, you just talk to it and ask it any questions about anything. I've fed it books, my entire Twitter feed, every video I've ever made, everything. And so you get to speak to it. Now, at first, I'm sure it'll be a bit laggy and, it won't be perfect, but it'll be the worst it'll ever be. It also changes the nature of media and media consumption because it goes from a one-to-many world, which will still exist because people like to talk about the thing that they saw, but it goes to a one-to-one world where, in 5 years' time, every viewer of Impact Theory will be having a different experience because they're talking to you like I am now,
correct,
picking your brains, what have you been interested in? And you don't need to be involved. It's going to get really weird on a
brother,
much bigger
as a
scale
game developer. As a game developer, I think about that a lot. The more I develop a video game, the more I become convinced we actually are living in a simulation. And if we're not, I will tell you that if you were going to build a simulation, it ends up exactly like the world that we're in now, where it's all physics driven and then everything else happens sort of deterministically based on the physics. So
you said something, that's what I wrote it down. It's like, what did you call the universe? Non-deterministic.
No, the universe is deterministic. I think
so
we are just billiard balls.
What do you mean by this?
Okay, so I think the universe has a set of rules and everything is born out of that. And that's it. And so there is no way for any human to have true free will because you're always in the context of what came just before, whether neurochemically, the construction of your biology, the way that things move through a space based on physics, all of that. And even if because a lot of people try to say, well, free will happens in the quantum fluctuations. That's not free will, that's randomness. So introducing randomness to a deterministic system does not suddenly make it free will. Free will just seems, there's a book called Determined by a man whose name, for some reason, Robert Sapolsky, thank the Lord. And he literally, every conceivable argument that somebody could throw at him, the book is long as hell. He just goes one by one through every single conceivable angle that you could try to sneak free will in. It is utterly convincing. And I'm just like, yeah, that all makes sense to me, because if you truly had free will, you would be sitting outside of physics, because you wouldn't be beholden to your emotional state. And your emotional state obviously is tied to all your biology. Your biology is tied to all of physics. And so it is just one string of one chain reaction, essentially. It's cause and effect all the way down.
So I've been thinking, not on dissimilar lines. For example, everything is code. And, the world gets populated by these microbes that have RNA and DNA, and before you know it, they divide and build all of this. But then when you look at, and here's getting slightly freaky, but we're going down these conversations. When you look at both the solar system or the maps of the universe, it just looks like a giant neural network. And it's got me more and more thinking that what religion has been saying for years, for thousands of years, is that it is all connected. And it's all connected via physics, and part of the physics we still don't really understand. What is dark matter, stuff like that. But there's some connection between all of this, that there is an element of universal consciousness, whatever that means. And I've been going down rabbit holes on X and elsewhere about, there's a thesis that goes around, which is just interesting. Some of these models are starting to show elements of consciousness. Now, humans say, well, they can't be humans, but it doesn't have to be a human to be conscious, right? A whale is conscious, or an ant is conscious, but in its own way. And that these models were less of an invention and more of a discovery of how to tap into universal knowledge, because this is a part of universal knowledge, because everything on the internet is all of the knowledge that we've got and we talk about. And that this whole thing is interconnected, which kind of fits in with this deterministic universe idea, that maybe it's all part of something much bigger.
Yeah, consciousness is the big mystery. So I'm not particularly fascinated by the question around consciousness, but panpsychism to me feels like that's not going to pan out, but I'm certainly not the guy to argue. But I don't understand people that push back on the idea that it's simply a layering of neurons question. I think, yes, if you build a sufficiently complex system, that it will have the inner workings in which to build a representative model of itself so that it can then have experience. Because ultimately all consciousness is it feels like something to be Raoul, Tom Bilyeu. And
does it feel something to be an LLM? We don't know, because we look at it in an anthropomorphic way, when in fact, why should we? So anyway, it's something that I've been puzzling as we see this whole world open up in front of us, the world of AI, that it may completely restructure how we think about everything.
That is for sure. And I think that you don't even have to go that far. Like, if you really want to freak yourself out, I was just talking to a guest about this and I could not get him to go with me. Let's see if I can drag you into these waters. So, all right, again, game developer, right? I'm building these games. This isn't something we're building today, but this is on our roadmap, where you create characters that are LLMs. They have a growing connection with you. And so they learn you, they remember the interactions with you. And so now how you treat them will matter. And if you've seen that new commercial for the AI friend that you can just wear like this necklace that watches all the things you do, multimodal, and you really begin to develop a relationship with it. Well, we're going to put things exactly like that inside of a video game. And so now you really begin to have persistent relationships, persistent relationships.
Non-player characters become player characters, essentially.
Correct. Now, imagine as that technology gets better, it's going to be embodied in a sex robot. So now imagine a stat that your audience may or may not know, but we have twice as many female ancestors as male ancestors, because a smaller number of men got a larger number of women pregnant. So one guy was getting multiple women pregnant, which means throughout human history, there have been guys that just were not able to get laid. Now, usually you get these, they call it the excess male problem. So you get these guys, surplus male, excuse me. So you get these guys, they're not able to enter the mating pool because women are just like, I'm not having it. Those guys would normally go off on war. The theory is that that's what Vikings were, is they weren't able to get women in their hometown. So it was like, well, go maraud. And your biggest prize was women. And so when you create this evolutionary reality that at least half, there were times where the ratio post-agriculture goes as high as 17-1. So for every 17 women reproducing, only one guy is getting them all pregnant. And so in those moments, you can imagine guys just go crazy and you've got to deal with them. They send them off to war, whatever. Okay, in this moment, it's not happening. So guys aren't able to enter the mating market, and yet they're not riding in the streets. The military can't recruit. And so people are asking, why not? And the quick answer seems to be that pornography, video games, they're able to have these crazy, amazing pursuits inside of video games, and that fulfills that part of like pursuit and getting better. And I think in the very near future, they're going to be able to have relationships with AI that for a guy that would not otherwise be able to get a girl, this is going to be a huge win. You have an AI that cares about you, that understands you, that knows you, that remembers your history, knows what you're into. You may not even really have secrets from them. And so they know your deepest, darkest secrets, and they still love and care about you. And I think people are going to take to that like a duck takes to water.
Have you been following Character AI?
No, not by that name anyway. I don't recognize it. What is it?
Fucking mind. So you go to Character AI, and there's anime characters and other characters.
Is this characterai.com?
Yeah, or character.ai, something like that. And there's even psychologists there. These are all models. And many of these anime characters, whether they're hero figures, girlfriend figures, boyfriend figures, very anime, very kind of idealized, have 100 million users. Some of these.
I am not surprised.
Many of them with 100. And this has been going for less than a year. It is exploded. There's whole Reddit forums of kids getting angry when the model changes and when the actual underlying model changes and their character doesn't love them as much or is not expressing the same things or doesn't have persistent memory. And they're getting hugely upset, like they've been jilted by a lover. And this thing, I think, I hadn't noticed this. I stumbled across it and I realized this has actually been probably the largest application of AI LLMs. We're all missing it because we're not of that age, but It's teens. And as to your point, the better this gets with video and all of that, that blurring between what is OnlyFans, what is pornography, what is prostitution, what is friendship, what is girlfriend, boyfriend relationship, the whole fucking thing is nuked.
Dude, everything is going to change so hard. This truly is the corner we cannot see around. Now, I think virtually every big change like this has second and third order consequences that are absolutely terrifying. So I don't want to paint the picture that I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. But there are going to be upsides to this, which is why people will adopt it like crazy. And I think we haven't even begun to explore some of the weirdnesses. So for anybody that was as aghast by, was it Gemini, Google's Gemini, when it came out and it was like, show me the founding fathers, and it was black women. You're like, what is happening? That shows you the hand of the designer. And so my wife has shaped me tremendously. I'm literally a different person for having married her than I would have become had I never met her. And so now the same will be true of your AI. Depending on how your AI is programmed, to the people on Reddit who are getting furious when they change the model, it matters and it can be changed. And it will have a human hand in it, at least in the beginning. And so do we want people creating an AI that's designed to effectively manipulate us, hopefully for the better, but in a direction? And what do we do about that? Do we make them make those that decision tree open source so we can at least see how we're being manipulated? Can we choose the manipulation? If we pick, I want algorithm QR instead of algorithm, ST, whatever. But you end up getting to pick the one that you want. Is it going to be something like that? How many people will be being shaped by an AI and not even realize it, right? So you're being shaped by AI in your feeds right now. Most people don't even realize that the replies on the feeds that they're looking at are displayed to them in a different order than they are somebody else because of the algorithm. It's nuts, and it's going to accelerate.
Yeah. But there again, we've always been manipulated. We started this conversation saying pretty much everything we do is manipulated by narrative. And is it any different being told by a politician or being told by an AI that has some AI? Will they have freedom? Probably in some respects. So it's creating this thing. I don't know, but it's the one thing I do know is it's going to happen for the reasons you said. There's enough lonely people in the world that this will happen. The other thing that leads to is population collapse. And this has been really interesting because Elon's been talking about this, and I don't think people have thought it through what he's trying to say. The more the population shrinks, the more we are economically incentivized to build more AI and more robots, the more we are likely to destroy all of humanity. Because it becomes this game of, if you want to keep the economic machine going, you need AI and robots for productivity because you've got less humans. And so therefore, and the more AI and the more robots, the more people are using character AI for their boyfriends and girlfriends, the less procreation, the faster the thing accelerates. And before you know it, we're completely overwhelmed by the AI and the robots, and we play a much smaller role. And they're incentivized to get better and better and better. So that's the end of humanity. Now, we could merge with the machines, obviously, but...
Yeah, which is utterly fascinating that the same guy that's warning people, hey, you better have kids, is the guy that's also making sure that we can brain interface so that we can keep up. It's really fascinating.
It's a real dichotomy because he's building AI and he's doing the brain interface whilst trying to sue OpenAI, which he started, saying AI bad while scaling AI. It's like, none of this makes sense.
Well, so I think it's actually interesting in that I think that's the only logical way forward. You are not going to be able to stop AI. It really isn't possible. And when I step back and look at, there's an algorithm embedded into the human brain that says technology can make tomorrow better than today, and I want that. And so we move in this one directional way, barring absolute catastrophe. For anybody that knows the Younger Dryas hypothesis, that there was a previously advanced civilization, probably nowhere near us, but an advanced civilization that was absolutely obliterated by a comet or who knows what. And civilization completely rebooted. And that's where you get all the myths of the floods. So barring that, though, we move in just this one way line and we're never going back. And so you're going to see technology just get implemented more and faster. And so it's possible that because of that quirk of human minds seeking technology to make tomorrow better than today, it is inevitable that we are a midwife for AI. And as a human, obviously that's deeply disturbing. But ultimately, as of right now, we're all going to die anyway. So it's like, do we care if, as long as it's conscious, do we care if it's synthetic or biological?
And that's my point. I don't think we do. And I think we're going to go down this path regardless. There's so much incentivization for this to happen that it will happen. One of the things that I think is that what we think of now as the polarization of people, I think we split in a accelerationist, decelerationist, i.e., those of us who want to use the technology, embrace it, and become at one with it. The reason you're wearing an Aura ring, or the reason we're using iPhones, or the reason I've got my Apple Watch on, or the reason, all of this stuff, right, is us moving that way. There's a whole bunch who are going to be decelerationist and say we don't have anything to do with that. And there's a fork in humanity coming here because these the technologists will evolve in a different way than the non-technologists, which is kind of crazy to think, that we see an evolutionary split that could happen in humanity and soon.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this before. I wrote a comic book about that very thing called Neon Future, about the bifurcation where humanity is going to pull apart. So you'll get people that are going to adopt Neuralink. They'll take superhuman abilities. They'll develop AI as rapidly as they can. And then you're going to get Puritans on the other side that I have a feeling will pull basically like what the Amish did. And they're just going to say, I'm going to plant a flag in 1992, and that's it. We don't deal with any technology that's more advanced in 1992. I don't care if it's 100 years from now, 200 years from now. That's it. That's where we're at. And hopefully that split is amicable, but I have a feeling there will be blood.
Yeah, I don't think, part of me just thinks, what happened to Neanderthal man versus Homo sapiens?
Correct.
We probably killed them.
Yup.
In one way, shape, or form. So, yeah, that's something that lies ahead. So, the other part of what you've been working very hard on is gaming. And we've talked about this here at Real Vision before, but it keeps moving forward. This is the Project Kyzen, right?
That is it, yes.
Talk to me about it, where you are and what you're doing, why you're so excited about it. I'm a non-gamer, so I get it.
Oh man.
But I'm not a gamer.
Dude, gaming, so I get why people are worried about games because they are so compelling as an art form that there really isn't anything like it. So I can sum up my fascination with gaming with the following idea. I believe that there are aliens. I do not believe aliens have ever come to Earth. The reason I believe that is once you can build virtual worlds, there is far more to explore inside of virtual worlds than there is in the vast emptiness of space. So space is hostile. Space makes you deal with radiation and effectively time travel, where you have to harness enough energy to bend space and time. You don't have those problems with a simulation. So you can go inside the simulation, and if you're either you yourself are a digital being, which we were just talking about, and then we're probably going to give birth to artificial intelligence, which is a digital being, or your body is connected via your nervous system to the simulation, and so you actually experience the simulation. Once that's true, now, literally with a couple lines of code, anybody anywhere can be creating these worlds, largely procedurally based. So it will be a world that's literally unique to you, that you can go in and influence in ways that you want. You could experience one set of physics in the morning, a completely different universe with different physics in the night. It will be insane, populated by NPCs, but they're conscious AI. And so you'll be able to have as deep of a relationship with them as you could with anybody. And again, is this in 5 years or 500 years? I don't know, but this is where it goes. And so given that it's already the most profound art form, entertainment platform right now, given that right now, as we're recording this, there's probably about 300,000 people. Okay, that's a real number. There's approximately 300,000 people right now watching other people play Grand Theft Auto 5. Okay, that's just one game. There's a whole bunch of other people watching a whole bunch of other games. Those are just people watching. So there's also a gaggle of people playing. People are so enamored by the detail that you can put into essentially a fake world. So Grand Theft Auto 5 has built a simulation. Imagine being able to open every door, go in every room, go in a hospital, walk up floors, sit on the hospital bed, go into a bank, go into a bar, go to a strip club, all of it, okay? It's 1/80th the size of Los Angeles. It is absolutely gigantic. In game, it will take you, I don't know how many hours to drive from one end of town to the other. It is absolutely massive. And so people effectively will live inside of that game 7-8 hours a day. Now, I get it. Some people hear something very dystopian in that. They're not wrong to raise an eyebrow. They're not wrong to say, I really need to see what the second and third order consequences of this are before I let my kids spend that much time. Heard. I totally understand. What I want them to recognize is There are already people making millions of dollars a year playing inside of these games, streaming, winning competitions, all that. It's a gigantic ecosystem with its own set of celebrities, its own set of personalities, in some ways, their own cultures. And when I read Ready Player One, I was like, oh, yeah, this is the future. My job as a game developer, and this is what we're building with Project Kyzen, I'm building a container. And I want you, dear player, to come in and create inside of this container. And my job is to build the rule set, to build a really interesting rule set that rewards you for coming in and creating inside of this space, and to make it interesting, more interesting than real life, hopefully rewarding in many ways. And that is what gets me enticed, is when I imagine that future, it's thrilling. Now, I personally, I'm just old enough to not want to completely live in it, but by way of having this opportunity to, when I want to be entertained in a far deeper, far enriching way than scrolling on my phone or watching a movie, it's like truly interactive, where I can go build, create, express myself, meet people, engage. I want to create that. I want to facilitate that. It's the greatest joy of my professional career, the greatest joy of my artistic career. It's the thing that has engaged me, body, mind, more than anything I've ever done, for sure.
I mean, incredible. But surely it's one of the most difficult things you've ever attempted.
It is.
Because there are many games.
Brutal.
And many games don't engage people. You know, it's that. Because you've got to get your vision out and hope that your vision aligns with other people's. I'd like to explore this world. How do you think about that in terms of the gameplay and the immersive experience and the just how does that all come together that you're not shitting yourself every night thinking, what have I done?
2.5 years ago, when I started this, had I known that the light at the end of the tunnel was an oncoming train, I would not have gone down this path. The first year of game development was brutal. It was so brutal. I was working 120 hours a week. I was miserable. I was stressed so badly that I was getting vertigo. It was really, really bad. And so my wife pulled me aside and was like, you're now damaging our marriage. It's the second time she's had to point that out in our 22 years together. And so I said, look, I'll find my way back to you. And so that really became about, okay, for the first year, I just didn't know what I was doing. Everything was blunt force trauma. It was just throwing more hours at it, more time. And I, by then, had accumulated enough knowledge to now know what's hard, what's easier, how do we structure this? And so we started putting systems in place. So now I'm back to a normal work week. We've got institutional knowledge. And the reality is that game development as a newbie is very much like begging someone to punch you in the mouth, because you learn. So there's this great article written called Fuck Doors. And the reason that the article is titled Fuck Doors is when you go to put a door inside of a video game, you realize how many decisions you have to make just about a door. How close does a hand have to get to the knob before you trigger it to open? Does it swing in? Does it swing out? Can it swing both ways? Does it close when you walk through it? Does it stay open? Like just on and on and on and on and on. But as you build, and this is one of the great things about Unreal Engine, is as somebody solves a problem, because it's code, you now have it and can reuse it. So I don't have to make that decision. I just go grab the code for door that opens one way, door that opens two ways. And so Unreal Engine has done an unbelievable job of baking in a lot of physics. And so already I just owe a debt of gratitude to them, because we've been able to now in the last 10 months, we've done more in the last 10 months than we did in the first 2 years, for sure, by far. And so you build the guts. That's the hard part. That's this is damaging your marriage part of the journey. But once you have that, now you can start layering on top. Now you can open it up to players and let them create. And so that's a big part of the Kaizen vision is this is not a world that will be built by me and my team. This is a world that will be built by the players. And look, the most obvious outcome is that our game sucks and nobody plays it. That's the most obvious outcome. And I face that every day. But I long ago gave up on being a cool entrepreneur that just is amazing out of the gate. I'm an iterative entrepreneur. I give you something that sucks. and slowly over time, I make it better. And I just don't quit. And that's been my calling card forever.
And how real and immersive is this iteration going to be? Because the technology is
not at all.
moving very fast.
Yeah. We're not trying to be that. That's Grand Theft Auto 6. If you want to blow your mind, go watch the trailer for that. It is unbelievable. There are parts of that trailer that you're like, wait, that had to have been real footage. So they're building a realistic simulator. What we're building is something based on basically information theory. So information theory says everything is a simulation. If everything really is a simulation, then there almost certainly is the multiverse. And what if you could map the multiverse and jump around, literally from universe to universe? So our idea is players will either build inside of a universe that either we created as a company or somebody else creates, or they will build their own universe. And because of the design of the game, we'd be able to, just like you're loading into a new game, you would walk up to a portal, you would click it, the game would be like, this will take a minute because we're effectively exiting one game and loading up a new one, and then you go into it. And obviously there are massive engineering challenges and things that we'll have to overcome over time. Right now, what we'll be launching with on August 22nd it's a very simple set of game loops because we're very early. We're still probably 3 years away from like a full-fledged game. Right now, we're what we call MOBAs. So for anybody that knows a MOBA, which are these massive online battle arenas, ours is a mini battle arena. So what we needed was a mechanism where we could create game modes very quickly, give them to players and say, which of these game modes do you like? So that we put energy where the players are actually going, what they're actually playing, as we build in the background towards the larger vision of this really big container. But at launch, players will have already submitted player-created and submitted maps that we will put into the game. So even at launch, it isn't just us creating this stuff. We have map building partners that right now are building maps, and we have to go through a technological process on the back to vet it, to make sure that it, it's not going to crash code and stuff like that. But yeah, to see how much faster we'll be able to iterate because the actual community is building part of the game effectively.
So that leads me into the part which is, well, now you've got to build a new community. You built a community around impact theory. This is now a new community.
Yep.
So this is a whole nother set of things you need to learn and who these people are, because they're not necessarily impact theory viewers. Sure, some are.
No,
it might bootstrap it, but you've got to. How the hell are you going to do that? Because you understand community, you understand the importance. So I'm just interested in how you're going to go about it.
Well, Raoul, as you well know, I am a moron who cannot force himself to only do one thing. I would be much bigger if I did. But because I have built so many disparate communities, which I do not advise, but if you're going to do something stupid, you might as well learn from it. Because I've had to do this now so many times, building a new community for us is like by rote. Like we know how to do this, very easy. There's simple formulas that you can use and follow. And so we're just running that playbook now. And now that we finally have game loops that people can play, you'll see in earnest over the next, call it 12 months, we'll build that community. And it's hilarious because if I put a video out on YouTube, I get roughly 10 million views a month on YouTube. If I go live stream me playing Fortnite on Twitch, I'll get average 10 viewers per session. So it is hilarious to me.
But this is the point, is you're now becoming a Twitch streamer because you have to have a whole different medium to reach the community that you want to grow. And so there's Tom suddenly now as a Twitch streamer playing games. I mean, that's a big kind of 360 or 180 to do yet again in yet another medium, because the game is another medium. Twitch is another medium. Podcast was another medium. Building a business was another medium. The education stuff, they're all different mediums that you've had to learn. Why do you do this pain to yourself? What?
Okay, well, the honest answer to that, and I'm being very serious, I have a flaw in my biological makeup that for whatever reason, I cannot enjoy my life and only be one note. I just can't do it. And it would be much better for business. I would make substantively more revenue if I just went and taught people how to build business. That would be it, right? Leave Quest, start an educational company that shows people how to build businesses. It would be an 8 or 9 figure business at this point, just so simply. But I wouldn't enjoy it. And so I would constantly get bored and frustrated. And so the whole punchline to why I got into business in the first place was to build a media studio. But the cash outlay that you need to do that is just ungodly. I knew that I had an opportunity to leverage my experience to build a YouTube channel. I was wrong about what percentage of that would join me in the creative endeavor. I thought it would have been, say, 20, 30%. In reality, it's 0.5%. And so I would have used a different strategy had I known that going into it, but I didn't. And so here we are. But the problem is, every time we build a community, it's a multi-million-dollar business. So it's like you spin these things up, they're incredibly lucrative. And so now we're just like, okay, no new things, as we say. We've got the communities that we have. Now it's about scaling those up. So I'm not doing new things per se, but we've been working on this product now for, like I said, 2.5 years. We're now at the point where we have enough that we can build the community and they'll stay. And so begins the journey that we knew 2.5 years ago we would have to embark on, building this community. And so some of it'll be built with me, and then others will be built with other personalities that we build up. But again, we know production so well. We know this kind of thing. We know how to build a community. We know how to do the social support around it, all that stuff. So now it's just a game of, do we have the institutional bandwidth to execute?
And also it closes a loop from your life, which is you started your life as a storyteller in a purest form, the movie industry.
Yeah, no doubt.
And here you are going back to that, but in the newer format of gaming, which has essentially superseded the entire film industry. And so
by far,
you're really closing that loop for yourself almost. Maybe that was the bit that you didn't succeed at, that it was always scratched at you somewhere, and you've gone back to it and said, you know what, I want to close this loop as well.
Brother, if I pull this off, you have no idea how much it'll be like, oh my God, when I was 12 years old, I said, I'm going to do this thing. And if I pull it off, I will have marched so diligently and so persistently through brutal pain and suffering at times and made it. It's like, just for the story, I so want to pull this off. Now, I'm way too aware, like I said earlier, that failure is the most likely outcome. But man, is it going to make a good story if I pull this off? So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
I'm just a huge believer is you can manifest your own destiny. And if you've got somewhere you're headed to, you'll generally end up somewhere close to it. It may not be exactly what you had in your mind, but the amazing thing is you've basically, even though you've done a bit of this en route, you've been going to that place. So listen, as ever, best of luck with it all. Good luck with the next phase of the launch. I will go and watch you on Twitch just to laugh and add some comments when there's only 10 people in the chat room, because I've never done that before. Please. It'll be fun. But thank you as ever stopping by and chatting. It's always brilliant to pick your brain. Loved it.
Thanks, brother. Always love the time.
So as you can see, a great conversation as ever with Tom, wide ranging, drifting here, there and everywhere. But really Tom's fears, and I've talked with Tom about this before, his fears of things getting out of control or uglier are ever present. Now, I'm much more of an optimist. I think we solve these problems, but I don't discount them. I don't discount how disgruntled people are. And it's clear that I may have reasons why I think that this is happening. Others think for different reasons. And we have to wait and see and have to be tolerant. The election is going to be really hard for everybody. Even us non-Americans who have to see our friends go through the emotional turmoil of what it does as social media splits people into two camps and turns them against each other, dumbing everything down to instant narratives of they're morons and they're morons. And I just urge all of you to keep a cool head, step back, observe where you're being manipulated and by whom. And trust me, you're being manipulated by everybody. Once you see that, it's much easier to deal with. Anyway, good luck out there, and I'll see you next time with somebody else to learn from. In the meantime, pop across to realvision.com and sign up. If you are on Real Vision and you want to know more about this technology, this line of thinking about where technology is going, then, do try and take a free trial of the Exponentialist. It's in the marketplace. It's something I'm immensely proud of, where David, Martin, and myself take the really deep dive, the real thinking in what is going on in technology, what it means for society, our jobs, our businesses, how we can invest in it, where the risks are, and also just an update what the hell's going on because it's moving so fast. So that's in the Real Vision marketplace, the Exponentialist. Anyway, I'll see you all next time.
Make large crypto trades with Kraken OTC, execute orders of more than 100,000 off the open exchange through our premium OTC trading service. Get 24/7 access to deep liquidity, minimal slippage, and competitive execution and settlement services. Private and secure trading options include chatting securely with our trade desk for a personalized high-touch service, or use our self-service RFQ for super fast, automated OTC trading. Non-investment advice, crypto trading involves risk of loss and is offered to U.S. customers through Payward Interactive Inc. For more information, go to realvision.com/Kraken OTC.
We hope you enjoyed the video. At Real Vision, we help you understand the complex world of finance, business, and the global economy with in-depth analysis from real experts. Join the revolution at realvision.com.